Welcome to City of Keene in Focus. Thanks so much for listening. Good morning and welcome to our next episode of City of Keene in Focus. We are joining you on this gorgeous spring morning. Oh my word, it's supposed to be like 65 degrees today.
Oh, I know. It's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
My name is Asa Kramer and I am here with Elizabeth Ferland. Good morning.
Good morning, Asa. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. We usually do a recap of City Council last Thursday. It's Tuesday morning, I think. What day is it? I don't even know.
It is Tuesday.
Would you mind filling us in on what happened?
Sure. So our mayor is on vacation, and he requested that Councilor Greenwald fill in for him. So he did a great job chairing last Thursday's meeting. And in fact, we were joking around after the meeting because it just seemed, I do not know what it was, but the demeanor in the room, everyone was joking around throughout the meeting and kind of giving each other a hard time. So it was great. It was a relatively quick meeting, and everybody seemed to be in good spirits. So love it when that happens.
That's great. Everyone's feeling the spring spirit.
You know what? That's probably it. So we did get through a lot of items in a relatively quick fashion. Mary Howe was in, and she received her retirement proclamation, which was nice. She came with her husband and her son, his wife, and, we did the usual. Councilor Greenwald read the proclamation, and then Mary had a few comments, and so it was nice to see her. Hadn't seen her in a while. And then we moved into our regular business, and there are a few things that are going to be coming to committee this week. So this week we have PLD on Wednesday and FOP on Thursday, and both have quite a few items on the agenda, but some of the communications that were referred at last Thursday's meeting is the request that comes in every year for the swamp bats to discharge fireworks. And just a note on that, last year there was a lot of conversation among the council about what is the right number of fireworks displays in a neighborhood, at a location. That agenda item is still on more time for PLD, and we intend to bring that conversation back. Right now, Councilor Bosley is also on vacation, and so Councilor Jones is going to be chairing this Wednesday's meeting, and Councilor Bosley really wants to be part of the fireworks conversation, so we'll hold it off until the next month. And then we had our annual request from the farmers market, which is great. They are coming back to Gilboa Ave this year, and they bring with them a couple of other vendors. The Copper Canyon Distillery and Cabana Falls are again requesting to participate in the farmers market. And so that item will go together with the farmers market request to PLD. And then Councilor Bosley's request for reconsideration of the community power plan. We talked about the power plan a little bit last time, and so what they did was they held this item off until later in the meeting when the power plan was up for conversation because it had been tabled at the last council meeting. And what they ultimately decided to do is refer it back to committee, which that was a good way to go because it got a little confusing between the three different motions, the amount of green power they wanted in each of the options, and whether or not they wanted to have an adder fee. There are some things that we need to change in the power plan in terms of language, regardless of whether or not they want to do the adder fee this year. And so I think bringing it back so we can sort of clean those motions up and more clearly understand the direction of the council, and then it'll come back to the full council again. So that is actually on FOP this week, so that'll be Thursday night. Now, Councilor Bosley is the one that requested the reconsideration and was interested in having it sent back. Unfortunately, she will not be there to be able to participate this Thursday evening, so we'll see what actually happens with the decision of the committee and whether there are a lot of changes or not for it to come back to council. And then we just had our regular updates and decisions from the committees. We did have a few presentations last week, and so one of them was New Hampshire Department of Transportation for the Route 101 project. and they accepted that as informational. And then Kara Fisk, Hennessy, had come in with a request, or actually it was more of an update to the council to let them know that we were going to be doing some tree removal for red pine scale, which is something that is concerning. There have been other communities that have seen the red pine scale attack their trees, and we've got a lot of pine trees that could be affected. So they talked about that, and they did, in fact, do the demonstration work this past Friday. We've got some pictures we'll be sharing. It was an opportunity to do some chainsaw training at the same time. So then they talked about the unresolved design decisions for the downtown project. There are still a few, and guess what? There are still a few more, but we made progress. And so, they talked about the location of the fountain in Central Square, and they decided to keep it in the middle. There was discussion about whether or not it made sense to adjust that location, and they felt it should stay where it is. They didn't, though, get into a big discussion about the actual design of the fountain, and so I anticipate we'll hear more about that at MSFI. There is a group that is interested in having a peace pole located on the Common or in Central Square, and that group had spent quite a bit of time with Andy Bohannon looking at what that might look like, and actually went as far as putting out a request for proposals, and an artist did propose a design. That group ultimately decided that was not the direction they wanted to go. So they're going to be coming back in to talk with MSFI about the peace pole request and what that might look like. And so I think there'll be more conversation there. And there's still a conversation that is happening and will be brought to MSFI about the over-the-street banner request by Tim Pip at Bees Tees. That we've done quite a bit of work looking at what would need to be engineered to support a banner of that size and length. And I think people are going to be surprised at the width of the structures, the poles that would need to be located on Main Street, and what that might look like, and how those guiding wires would need to be there year-round, and what that might look like. And so we intend to have a conversation with Tim and actually Ted Greer from Ted's Shoes, who is also supportive of this request, just to share what we found and see if they have some additional suggestions, and then ultimately bring it back to MSFI for a decision as to whether or not to include it in the bid. The other item that we still need to discuss with council is the color of the bike lane.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're looking for the right green.
We are looking for the right green. And Public Works is actually going to dye some concrete different colors of green so that the council can check them out and see what they like.
I love that. I think that's such a good idea, because it is different on a computer screen on a PowerPoint than it will be on concrete. It's just, It's going to be different.
I think it is a good idea, and it was a suggestion made by our Public Works director, because the color does get muted as it's absorbed into the concrete. So I think it's going to be very different. And personally, when I saw the first drawing and the green, it did look way too bright for the downtown. But then I've seen some samples of the color being absorbed in the concrete, and it does get muted. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they pick.
Good chance to get some eyeballs on it.
Yeah. Then there was a conversation about the Protections of Streets program, and it didn't get a lot of conversation at the council meeting, but there were a couple of questions. So the decision is for staff to draft an ordinance and bring it back to MSFI for further conversation. But one of the questions that came out of the council meeting was, what is the real need for this? How many times are utilities or other companies actually cutting into the pavement after we've done a pavement project? And how many times are homeowners who have a sewer connection issue cutting into the pavement? The council would like to understand better what that breakdown is, because this would be an additional fee, a penalty for cutting into the pavement after the first 5 years of a road has been paved. So that could be your road in your neighborhood or any road in the city. It's called a Protection of Streets program, and many of the other cities have this type of program, and they have different penalty amounts. But I think the real concern is how will it impact residents? I'm not sure we're so concerned about the utility companies, and because if they are not coordinating with us when we do our road work, well, that's their issue. But unfortunately, it is an issue for our residents if they do have some sort of emergency break and need to have a repair. And unfortunately, we can't create a program that is different for residents versus what we charge to the utility companies for cutting into the pavement. So it'll be interesting to see how this is decided when it gets back to committee. I think that there'll be definitely more conversation about what that means for the average resident. And then we had our 2025 construction season update. This is a great update that Public Works puts out every year. And they list all of the projects in the city that are happening this spring, this summer, and this fall. And they list the specific roads that we'll be working on and whether or not they are just getting some minor rehabilitation, a shim and an overlay maybe, or what sort of work we're doing for drainage. And so if you're interested, if your road's on there, or you're just interested what the city is doing this construction season, I suggest you check that out because it's a great summary.
Our new, well, I guess I don't know if he's new anymore. Our new city engineer, Brian Ruoff, gave a excellent overview at the last MSFI, and they are doing so much.
So much. Yeah, investing in infrastructure. The city does a great job at planning for infrastructure projects, and we do that through our capital program, and whether or not it's just a capital project, a one-time thing, or an ongoing program that's investing in infrastructure, the city does a good job at planning that out, and roads, sidewalks, water, sewer infrastructure, buildings. Another place to really, if you're interested in this sort of stuff, is to check out the capital plan. You'll see what we have planned for the next 7 years, and then check out the appendix, and there are several more years included in there. And then there was a need to make an adjustment for our contract, and I mentioned this at the council meeting. It's just a great catch by purchasing. And so what happened was we had gone to finance and got the flyover for the city-based map project approved, and the budget for that is $150,000. And Will Schaffman, our GIS coordinator, did a great job explaining it and talked about the bids that we received and gave a proposal to the committee that they ultimately accepted. But the motion itself didn't include up to $150,000. So there was some confusion because the base bid was $90,000, but there were some other items in the bid that had to do with some work at the airport. We're getting ready to do a perimeter fence up there, and so there's some additional GIS information that would be helpful. So there were a couple things that were added. And the contract actually ended up being $110,000 of the $150,000. But for us to be able to execute that contract, we needed the motion to be clearer that we had the authority to go up to the $150,000. So this was put on the agenda so that they needed to just suspend their rules and act on it. There was no need to do a motion for reconsideration because the vote actually happened last year. It was in November of 2024. So we're in a new year, and we were able to just make that amendment and make it clear what the intent was before executing the contract. And then there was a couple of other items under ordinances for second reading, and the big one is the master box ordinance. And that was approved, and there really wasn't a lot of questions. It had gone to committee a couple of times. I think we had worked out most of the concerns at committee level and answered the questions, including questions from the public that had come in. But this is a big deal because this is the infrastructure under the ground, under the pavement, that provides the direct connection from businesses to the fire department when their fire alarms go off. And it was a requirement that certain businesses within districts had to connect, and they didn't have a choice. This master box ordinance now says you can connect, and you can do it through radio transmission, which has come a long way since when we first had this installed, or you can do a dial-up system through maybe your security that you already have in place. And so it gives options to the property owners. But it's important for us because we're getting ready to do the downtown project. And if it's a system that the council agrees we can eliminate, then there's no need for us to make room for it and reinstall it as part of the downtown project. So I was happy to see that that was addressed and approved, and we'll be able to now move forward with communication. I asked the fire chief and the fire marshal to work together to start notifying anyone who's currently connected to our system what their option is. And they are also working on a request for proposals for radio transmission systems, both for city buildings and potentially for other property owners who may want to tag on to our bid. So more information on that should be coming soon. Then the council adopted the appreciation of Tom Mullins upon his retirement. So we actually had already adopted this, but he continued to work for the city for the past year in a part-time capacity. So we made a couple of amendments and corrections, and Tom is actually planning to come in at the next council meeting. So we'll get to see him, and the council will get to give him his retirement resolution in person. And I think that's really, there was also a stop sign on Gilsum Street, but that was really more of a cleanup ordinance. There's a red blinking light there that should mean stop right now, but not everybody is stopping. So this is just the addition of a stop sign there instead of using the red blinking light on Gilsum Street.
Great. Yeah, I feel like sometimes people take those red blinking lights as a suggestion to stop.
Right.
They do, in fact, mean stop.
Right, exactly.
Well, great. That was such a good overview. You mentioned a couple of things that are coming up. I figure we'd look ahead to PLD and FOP this week and just kind of give a brief overview of what is coming up. I know you mentioned that on PLD, we're going to talk about the farmers market. I love those items. It's always like this time of year, it's like the first signs of spring, right? There's like robins and there's snow fleas and there's little buds in the trees, and also the farmers market comes to PLD, so that's always really exciting. Are there other things we should be looking forward to for PLD and FOP this week?
So most of the items that are at PLD are license requests, and then FOP, there are some contracts. We have a few coming in from the airport. They're engineer-related contracts, and most of them are, I think we have 3 on the agenda. Most of them are related to the work we're doing for the perimeter fence project. And then really the big topic of conversation will be the community power plan, revisiting that conversation with the council and getting a recommendation for the city council.
Great. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about today?
I think that's it, Asa.
All right. Well, awesome. As always, I'm just going to mention, go to keenanh.gov/jobs. There are lots of good job opportunities on there. Give that a quick peek. If you know someone who's looking for a job, or if you are looking for a job, definitely recommend checking those out.
That's great. I want to plug the ombudsman position. So we talked about this before, but the ombudsman position is a temporary part-time employee for the next 3+ years during the construction of the downtown project. This person will be the liaison between the contractor and the city to help resolve issues that downtown businesses may have, comments, concerns, suggestions, or residents, maybe you live downtown or maybe you're just coming downtown to shop. This ombudsman position will help to mediate and communicate potential solutions to the contractor. And the reason why we felt this was important, and Concord did this when they did their downtown project and they thought it made a big difference, is, the contractor is focused on, okay, here's the work we're doing for the week, and they're really focused on their activities. But the ombudsman is independent from the contractor, so they are able to really advocate for the downtown business, the residents, whoever is approaching them about what's happening in the downtown to find solutions. And so they're working with the city and the contractor to follow up on items. And, I think it's going to be important when we do the downtown events as well. How will those events unfold? We want to continue to have our events throughout the life of this project. It is important to have our downtown events because they really do support the overall downtown economy. And so we'll be working with the downtown businesses and the ombudsman to find ways to do that with the least amount of disruption. So apply for the ombudsman position.
Great. Yeah, thanks for highlighting that job opportunity. That's going to be so vital. Well, if there is nothing else that you'd like to cover today, I think we'll wrap up for today. I hope everyone gets a chance to get out and enjoy some of this beautiful March sunshine, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for listening to City of Keene in Focus. We'll see you next time.